WoW developer interview with Mr. GM, and there was a lot of stuff revealed in this thing that's, gonna lead to more stuff going forward. So let's check out a little bit of a summary of what was revealed in that interview and some of my thoughts on some of the things that Blizzard has said so far. First things first. For Dragonflight, the developers know that players love getting content, indeed, and they said they want to give us more content, which is great. Yeah, we want more content. Content is king at the end of the day, and they said they want to keep doing it on an 8-week cadence. So essentially, they want to give us new stuff every 2 months. I'm not fighting that. I'd be happy with that. Not only do they want to give us new things, but they said, they talked a little bit about Season 4 and Faded Rating returning, and of course, if you've been watching this stream for any amount of time, you would know that I already predicted those things. That's right. Yeah, I did. I did predict the pirate expansion, and I've gotten a lot of flack from chat about that, okay? Yeah, deservedly so, I guess. I guess I'm a piece of shit for thinking I was getting excited about pirates. But I did say there would be no Season 3. There would be no 10.3. But we would, in fact, get a Season 4 with Faded Rating. I talked about how Faded Rating content in and of itself is a 7-week process because of the way they release that shit. So, it's going to be good. It's good for us. They expect it to be every, like I said, 8 weeks. And they also dropped a hint that some of the content that's coming is going to be very unexpected. So that's cool. So that means so far no one's been able to speculate so far on the kind of content we're going to be getting. Between static and dynamic flying, they said dragon riding is going to become core to the game. They want to remove the whole little, Yeah, no pirates, I know. They want to remove the whole little Dragonflight, tree, the little tree that we have that we fill out with by collecting the coins and all that shit. They said those abilities are just going to become core to dragon riding, which is fine. That's what we want to see. And they said, regular riding. So dragon riding is going to be called dynamic flying, and then you're going to have regular flying. Those two things are going to continue forward. They said they got to redo some zones. It's part of the world revamp. I would say dynamic flying is part of another reason, or of many reasons, why we're going to get a world revamp. And they've already talked about, Silver Moon and the area of Quel'Thalas and all that getting revamped. They've even hinted at Northrend getting revamped in another expansion. So these things are going to continue to happen. They said part of it is dynamic flying within older zones. It kind of messes up how things get rendered. So they need to work on some of those things. And I do think that's going to lead to more revamping of the world. They did talk about druids getting dynamic flying. Now, in the interview, they said, wouldn't it be cool, but we're not going to talk about flight form for druids just yet. But then in a separate interview, it was confirmed over the weekend that, in fact, druids are going to get dynamic flying for their flight form. So, it's been a good time to be a druid with 10.2 and the expansion announcements. So that's great for them. In 11.0, Dragonflight will become the default leveling experience. So if you're going to level up a character, you'll go to Dragonflight, all the way up to 16. It'll go through the new expansions and everything like that to level up, and everything else will be Chromie time. So you'll pick whatever expansion you want to go to prior to Dragonflight, which is fine. Although I do think things will get a little bit muddled without the BFA experience. I know that storylines is going to become a little bit less important, but I do think BFA's storyline is kind of core to everything that's happening later on. So it's interesting that maybe some new players will never experience that storyline if they pick a different one to play through with Chromie time. BFA is going to Legacy. That is true, yeah. The Earthen Allied Race. So we've been talking about allied races. I don't even know what an allied race is anymore, to be completely honest with you, or what makes something an allied race versus a regular race. I used to think maybe it was just because allied races are really just reskins of old skeletons. But that changed when we got Kultiran and Zandalari trolls. Those are fresh skeletons, right? Those are completely new races. I still say, till now, the Zandalari and the Kultiran should have just been races out of the box, that you get, right? Those should have been fully fledged races like the Drakthir are. But it is what it is. I don't know what makes an allied race anymore. But we are getting the Earthen. I do think they're kind of cool. They're specifically more cool for the Horde than they are for the Alliance, because Horde never had dwarves before, and now they're going to get dwarves. So that's good for them. And basically, the Earthen are going to be joining us, not through reputation, but as we quest and get to know them. They said there will be this, break point in the questing where it'll make sense for the Earthen to become playable and join us in Azeroth. Now, again, they'll pick Horde or Alliance, so they'll be on both sides. And Blizzard has said that the racials are being worked on, and we'll eventually see them in some kind of test realm. I'm expecting to see, just like the Drakthir, maybe some kind of beta testing where, you know, one of the first betas is going to be you can make an earthen and then see how that's all about. So that's going to be cool. There's one piece of the earthen that I was actually shocked by. The earthen can be Death Knights. What is going on with that lore? Don't we don't have a Helm of Domination anymore. We've got a Tiara of fucking wills. Some of the worst shit they've ever done in the game, by the way. I could refuse to even ignore that's a real thing. But we got the Crown of Wills, as they call it. How are Death Knights still even happening? I understand maybe the magic is happening through some kind of death magic that still exists in Northrend, maybe, but how are the Earthen even coming in contact with the Lich King? Like, these boys have been, you know, doing their thing inside the earth. To become a Death Knight, you need to die and be resurrected through by the Lich King, essentially. What is going on with that? I don't understand how that lore connects. I'd be interested to see maybe if there's some separate storyline or something. But me as a Death Knight player, I've always loved the Death Knight lore. Always thought it was very core to the game. And Death Knight Earthen just doesn't make sense to me. But we are going to get them, at least unless I'm wrong. I believe that I saw that as one of their race class combos. So there you go. I guess somehow Bolvar is still making Death Knights. Without a helm, without Frostmourne, man has basically just unequipped everything at this point. You haven't made an allied DK race yet, have you? No, well, I did. No, I've seen that whole storyline. I know how that works. Where the Death Knights, where the allied races can become Death Knights. But didn't he still have the helm at that point? I don't know. There's new lore? Oh, okay. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, how did the Earthen come in contact with Northrend? Maybe we'll figure that shit out. I'm stuck on a silly point. But anyways, racials will be worked out. I'm sure we'll get to test that stuff out. The War Within. Yes, alpha and beta timing is still being worked out, but because they are releasing so much different content across different versions of the game, they will be setting up a new process for how to handle releases. I think we're going to get specific alpha and maybe beta testing for certain things. Most specifically, I think, is that hero class talent stuff that they're doing. They did say that they want to test that out. Obviously, there is player power involved with those talents, so they're going to have to really balance that shit out. So I think we're going to get very, very early access, and alpha specifically, to the hero talents. That's what they've been talking about. They've even talked about, you know, as early as spring of this year that, well, it would be spring of next year, but that the next spring is when we're going to see the first alpha stuff come out. So they really want to get ahead of this. They want to get player testing. They want to get player feedback, and they want to be able to iterate on this stuff as much as they can before the actual expansion releases. This man watched 3 hours of lore videos a day and still doesn't know the lore. True. But that's why I watch so much lore. I'm trying to figure it out. Again, no specifics regarding the future customization options for all these, you know, races and classes. We know that Blood Elves are getting new stuff, new hair colors. They want to keep doing that. They said they want to keep adding customization options. There's no like specific timeline or plans in the fold, but they do want to keep doing that. So we're going to keep seeing stuff like that coming out. They'd like to expand on race class combos. We know we've seen Tauren Rogues and the kind of blasphemy that exists with Lightforged Draenei. They want to keep doing that. They said they want to get more race class combos. Everybody's going to be able to be a Death Knight, I guess. Everyone's going to be able to be a Death Knight at some point. Maybe even Drakthir Death Knights. We know I created the first one on the stream back in the day. The Renown system will continue on as well. Look, the Renown system is fine. It is what it is. The one thing that I like about it most is that if you don't want to do it, there's no player progression involved with the Renown system, right? There's nothing really to pull from that in terms of like the desire to go and have to do it. I didn't do it for anything really in Dragonflight, which is fine because it doesn't matter. The one thing I will say, the one type of reputation that I liked more than Renown, or that I'd like them to eventually bring back for rep grinds, is the tabard system. My favorite version of rep ever in this game was when you used to be able to put on a tabard and then go run dungeons and get the rep you for whatever tabard you're wearing. So like back when I wanted scryers or something or whatever, I remember this mainly in Wrath of the Lich King. If I wanted a certain rep, I would just put that tabard on, and then everything I did would give me rep for that tabard. And it made sense in terms of lore too, because hello, you're doing shit and you're repping the faction that you want to get stuff for, right? You're repping them. You're literally repping them across your chest. So everything you do gains reputation for that thing. It makes sense. So I wish they would bring something like that back. but the Renown system's continuing forward. It's not the worst system we've ever had. It's actually one of the better ones, so I'm good with that. It's a Shadowlands thing that continues forward. There's a couple of those. Continuing on with new account-wide warbands. They talked about warbands, and the main thing with warbands is they want to give you, the player freedom of creating alts and not feeling like you're regrinding a lot of the same shit. That's a lot of what they talked about here. They also mentioned that while warbands are going to be, something cool, right, for your alts, they want to make sure that it's not something that you have to do, right? Because we've seen in other games where creating alts becomes a must for player progression, especially when they're all connected to each other, like grinding out currencies and stuff like that. You start having to need alts to be able to truly progress in the game. They want to make sure that that doesn't become the case in World of Warcraft. They want to make sure that this is still about, playing your character, and that's the best way to progress. But warbands just kind of unlock some regrinding shit that you would have to normally regrind on an alt. They don't want there to be any benefits involved with having multiple alts and allowing for player progression faster because of that. Yeah, finally an upgrade for Sam. So I am King Julian. Yeah, I'm gonna do all that stuff. There's no direct answer to whether cross-realm transmog will be retroactively added in terms of collections once the War Within launches, though collecting it all ahead of time may not be the right way. Okay, so interesting. So retroactive transmog stuff is still up in the air. Outdoor content and delves. Delves are a big deal. I think delves are a bigger deal than people think, mainly because I think delves will be the system that enables a world revamp or gives it a reason. Because I've said this many times before, if you're going to revamp the world, if you're giving me a new, Elwyn Forest, a new Ungoro Crater, new zones that have been revamped, you got to give us a reason to go to those zones, right? If you put all this time into, adding polygons to all the trees in Ungoro, I got to have a reason to go back there. Delves are going to be that reason. I think that's the whole reason why they're really adding in. They changed the entirety of the vault to add a world content tab there, is because if they're going to revamp the world, they want the world to be important in terms of progression, and adding it to the vault, creating delves, makes those zones important. So delves going forward, it's going to be an endgame activity that people who don't do high-level dungeons or raids, but can do to still get gear. I believe they said delves will be unlocking gear up to what is considered heroic raid gear. So this ain't no joke. Like, this is definitely something you can do with your Mythic Plus and raiding, or separate from them if you don't want to do Mythic Plus and raiding, and it'll be a way to gear out. They said they're going to be like 10 to 15 minute things. They did mention how some of this stuff's going to work with maybe like a candle. You got your little cobalt candle on your head, it's dwindling out, and you got to keep relighting it to keep going further into the delve. It gave me somewhat of Torghast vibes in terms of maybe there's like a timing restriction on them. Some people were commenting that maybe that's just one type of delve and there's going to be other ones that are different. I'm not sure yet. There's a lot to be determined with these things. I am glad that they're adding something like this to the game, mainly because, like I said, it creates some cool stuff. And me personally, I've always loved world content. I've always loved open world content, and I think these are going to be instanced, but it counts, I guess. But the main thing is, I've always liked things that bring you into the world. I've always liked things like Wintergrass, Encourage stuff, world boss stuff. Those things have always been cool to me, and this is a great iteration on that stuff. They're not sure how Reputation and Renown will work with delves yet. They're going to work those in or not. The outdoor row of the Great Vault is more than just delves, but it includes all the activities, from the world and stuff that could contribute to that. So that's great to hear as well. Simply because there is so much open world content in the game, they want it all to be somewhat relevant. And like I said, adding that to the vault row makes it relevant. It definitely gives you a different way to gear out. The team knows that players love having reasons to go back and revisit previous content. Hey, there you go, more world revamp hymns, which isn't restricted to dungeons and raids. So the team is thinking about how they could make other world content work. There you go. All that stuff hits at more world revamp stuff. Last but not least, professions. The current plan in War Within is to have their own version of the existing professions and talent systems, so players who really love professions will be able to learn talents, spec into specializations and things, and use Work orders, the work order system in the next expansion. Look, I'll be honest, I haven't done a lot of work orders. Haven't done a lot of profession stuff. I think going forward in this next expansion, I hope they iterate on archaeology specifically. I think that'd be a really cool profession to get deeper into, considering that we're going underground. We're doing all this, stuff with these earthen, dwarves and all that. Like, all this stuff's very earthy, very underground. Archaeology, I think, needs some love. And hopefully it gets into this next expansion, because it would totally make sense in terms of lore.